Welcome back. This is the Sunday Puncher podcast. I have here with me Jason. I have Simon, and that's it. And we have a bunch of topics to talk about, and we're going to start with Danny Jacobs. Is not too surprising to Jason and me, but very surprising in the way it happened. Knockout of Peter Quillin. Well, technically it was a stoppage if we want to be fair.
Yeah.
Simon, were you on the edge of your seat when you realized the moment that Jacobs landed that 1-2, which was actually punch number 1 and 2 that he had landed in the fight? Were you on the edge of your seat when you realized, oh my God, Quillin is hurt?
I was out the edge of my seat. I was tempted before it started to put a bet on Jacobs, so I'd filled it out, and I thought, I tell you what, if I wait a minute, if they have a sort of cagey opening round, his odds might go up a bit, and then I can put it on mid-fight. And as soon as that punch landed, it was just like, oh no, trying to get over. It was too late to do anything about it. But no, it's fantastic form.
Yeah, I mean, after the fight, I texted Jason because I had a sense that he wasn't watching the fight since he wasn't messaging me, and I just told him, I don't know what you're doing, but go watch the fight.
Yeah, and then right after I got that text, I'm like, oh, so it must have. Obviously, it's an intriguing fight, and I figured it was like into the middle rounds by the time you had texted me, and then by the time I had been able to sort things out where I could get in front of the TV and start watching it. So I had actually had the expectation of a long fight when I sat down, and then and I texted you earlier in the day, and then I'd actually made a comment in the weigh-in thread that I thought Jacobs had a really good shot at winning this fight. And I obviously, by no means would I sit here and try to claim that I predicted a first-round knockout, because I absolutely didn't. I knew that Jacobs was being underestimated in that he really, had a very good chance at winning. But man, so I got a couple questions for you guys. And I'm gonna rapid fire off the questions so I don't forget. Then we'll go through them. So, 1, do you guys think it was an early stoppage?
No.
2, do you think? Okay, so let's rapid fire off the questions, right?
It was a rapid fire answer.
2, do you think it was he caught Quillin cold?
Maybe.
And you play this fight out again, what happens?
Decision.
So
I think
for more of a discussion based off those.
Well,
fine.
by saying rapid fire, I thought you meant answer quickly. But I do want to go into those things because I think those were some good questions.
Yeah, so on the first one, not so much within our boxing, but elsewhere, especially on Twitter, especially on Instagram, lots of people thinking it was an early stoppage, unhappy with how it played out. My perception of it was, lots of people are angry about the stoppage. And
did they want to see Quillin die?
I don't understand where they're coming from with this.
Did
because
you see the look in his eyes? His eyes were so glassy.
Steve Bunn said that they were flying saucers, and he was right. He's looking off into the distance, and he doesn't know where he is. And, there's no standing 8 for him, so it's like, do you want him to just immediately point them back together? Because he'd just get decapitated.
Yeah,
so So that's the thing. That brings us to a larger point about, Quillin in general. And this is, another thing that I wanted to talk about is he clearly reacted poorly to adversity. Help me out. He reacted poorly to, being in an adverse situation. Yeah. This is like the thing that I would, if I was ever training a fighter, take a damn knee. Take a knee.
Well, this is it. He didn't even have his wits enough about him to consider taking a knee, did he?
And that's how you know it's an okay stoppage.
Exactly. If he'd have taken a knee, taken a count, recovered, and gone back into it, that's one thing. But the fact is, he was in emergency fight or flight survival mode, just staggering around, trying to just in panic. When someone's in that frame of mind, they're not going to be able to defend themselves adequately, especially not at that level of competition. They're just going to get, with how much Jacobs had riding on it, you could see as soon as there was that moment, that chink in the armor, he had his eye on stoppage, and he would never have relented.
So part of the reason that I gave Jacobs such a good shot in this fight is because of what I saw out of Quillin against Andy Lee. Andy Lee, definitely a good competitor in the middleweight division, but definitely not an elite level fighter, right? I think we could all agree with that. And I think having such a close, technical, slow, kind of methodical fight against Andy Lee, I think that kind of messed with Quillin's psyche a little bit, because Quillin is much more used to like a fast-paced, knocking guys down all the time, a totally different type of fight. And I just had a feeling that Quillin was going to that fight had kind of changed Quillin. He was going to be a little more reserved, and that he just wasn't going to be the same fighter that we've seen. And it's hard to tell if that was actually true because we didn't get to see enough of the fight. But, big ups for Jacobs, because he's certainly done well with his career as of late.
I think in their post-fight interviews, both of them became very likable. They both gave tremendous accounts of themselves.
When's the last time somebody liked Peter Quillin?
Well, seriously, maybe when he was trained by Freddie Roach and was on that side of things. But I disagree with what you say. I don't think that Quillin fought any differently than how he's ever fought. I've watched Quillin for a very long time. I've never seen much different from Peter Quillin. What I will say is that a lot of people have not watched Danny Jacobs that much. I think for the most part, Danny Jacobs' exposure, you'd have to tune into Showtime Extreme. You'd have to watch Spike TV. Danny Jacobs really hasn't been in a main eventing card where people could really put the focus on him. And when they did, it was a Dmitry Pirog fight, and everybody wants to be an expert on who Danny Jacobs is. But look, he's got the amateur resume. He was one of the top amateurs when he was, before he turned pro. And since he's been pro, look at his knockout ratio. He's got a crazy knockout ratio. It might be just as high, if not a little below Golovkin's.
It's below Golovkin's.
So, I'm number one fan here. But only 3 guys have gone the distance with him. And so he's got power. And he's also a smart fighter and knows how to set it up. And Quillin, what we know is he's vulnerable. He was in firm control of that Lee fight. He dropped him twice. He should have easily beaten him.
I don't think anyone's taken him all 12.
Who, Jacobs?
Yeah.
No.
He's early decisions, isn't he, when he's still in six rounders, etc.
That wasn't on what you would consider anything past that was when he was a domestic level fighter, or like a prospect, you could say. So it seems like he's getting better as he gets further away from that Pirog loss. And he's recaptured a lot of the momentum. And I think Quillin just showed up and tried to be Quillin and a little overconfident. I think the situation got to both of them where they both had a lot of pride. They had something to prove in this fight. And what we saw is that Jacobs was a smarter fighter. I mean, if you look at the way he knocked him down, he feinted a hook, drew Quillin to react, and then delivered with the 1-2. I mean, it was textbook stuff, and we just saw that Jacobs is the better fighter. But I do think in a rematch, Quillin would be a lot more respectful of Jacobs' power, because you kind of got the sense like he was out there, he was trying to take control because he backed Jacobs up from the opening bell. And I think Jacobs would be a little weary of, because it didn't seem like Jacobs really was trying to knock him out. He just threw a great punch and got him.
A perfect punch landed. Exactly. He wasn't looking to end the fight in the first round. It's just how it happened to go down.
Opening cropped up.
Exactly. But the beautiful part about it is he took it. You know what I mean? There's so many fighters who get that chance and then they don't capitalize on that momentum. Like, that showed us that, in obviously his knockout ratio in general shows us that he is a good finisher. Like, when he has somebody hurt, he knows what to do.
And to that, he even backed off at the right times, because as soon as he started going off on Quillin, I was like, he's going to punch himself out. And that would have been good for us, because then Quillin would have probably dropped him and it would have been a great fight. But immediately, once I had that thought, a second later, he backs off, he resets, takes a little break, and then goes right back into things. It was a good move by Jacobs. And, I think right now he's the second best middleweight in the world. What is
Outside
Canelo?
Of Canelo?
Yeah. Well, Canelo's in his own little world. Anybody who wants to fight him, you're in a division that's not middleweight and that is neither super welterweight either. And Quillin really needs to go back to the drawing board. That was one of those flaws that the only way he's going to fix that is by having more offense. What Quillin lacks is something that you don't teach. It's almost instinctual. Like Amir Khan, as much as he tries, he's never going to get away from the low IQ reaction when he's hurt. And I think Quillin's going to be a little similar to that. And he's just going to need to respond by being more offensive and not letting fights get to that point, and hope that when he does step up again, he doesn't get caught with anything big.
I did rewatch the fight, obviously, because it was short enough to watch a couple
50
times.
seconds long.
Right. And Quillin, so to speak to Quillin being hurt, he did tie up the first time. So his instinct actually was correct. He did tie up the first time, and it did gain him a little bit of time to kind of refresh and get his wits about him, but obviously it wasn't enough.
I think if you watch him, there's a moment where he's on edge, and I think that his boxing brain is telling him what to do, but his boxing heart says, go to town on the inside. If he wants to get rough, get rough. Just listens for that tiny moment, and that's all it took.
Yeah, I think we got to give Quillin some credit, because nobody's going to give him credit, but like he really showed the heart of a champion there in trying to fight back. Like that was some Bradley level resiliency. Now, obviously, it's stupid in both cases to do that, because Bradley almost got stopped by a domestic fighter, and Quillin just lost to a really good one in Jacobs. But
here's the thing: both Bradley and Quillin, gained the boxing community's respect within those fights.
Well, that's a different topic.
I really think that, at least for me going into this fight, I've always viewed Quillin as the obstacle that Golovkin can't get around as far as promotional issues, and it's just kind of been frustrating, and I haven't really enjoyed watching him fight that much, just because I know he's kind of this fork, or this peg that's immovable as far as Golovkin's career goes, which has kind of definitely made me not a fan. But after watching this fight, man, I'm not going to say I'm a fan, but I'm very impressed with his performance, and just I'll be more than happy to tune in rather than tune in begrudgingly, because I'm watching boxing and I'm not going to miss a fight, kind of thing.
I've always liked Quillin, so I don't have that opinion of him. But it's interesting because for me, Golovkin, the obstacle for him is not even a middleweight, it's Andre Ward, because I think they're always going to be trapped, because that's the best fighter out there, and Golovkin is remotely close to his division in that all lightweights and super lightweights, like Mayweather's their thing, where he'll always be their obstacle, despite the ridiculous size advantage for a lot of them. Let's talk about the Chris Algieri fight. The Cuellar fight we're not going to talk about. It was uneventful. It was a title defense of a ridiculous title. Cuellar took a decision, and it's really clear that Cuellar loses to any of the top featherweights because he does not have a good defense. But the Chris Algieri fight versus Eric Bonet, I thought was a really good fight. Like maybe even should be thrown in for fight of the year. Unfortunately, Algieri doesn't have the power that
John David Jackson's training really needs to be the most successful.
Right. So what Algieri's going to get himself into is a lot of brawls that he takes a lot of damage, and we saw his eyes swelled up and almost shut. But at the same time, it's entertaining, and Algieri is just ridiculously conditioned that he's not going to lose decisions if you let him fight this fight. He will not. Unless you're a really good sharpshooter with a good defense, you will not beat Algieri if he can fight his way now. What do you guys think about that?
In what context?
What did you guys think of the fight? Do you guys disagree with what I said?
No, I think it was a really entertaining one, and I was kind of rooting for Bonet, because Bonet's this someone you've never heard of, that shows up with, a tiny amount of notice to fight Sean Porter, gives a really good account of himself, and gets you thinking, what could this kid do with a proper camp against someone, more on his level? And so I thought it could be his time to sort of make an impact. Sadly, that wasn't the case, and it wasn't for lack of trying. He was just outclassed. There were holes in his strategy, and even his fundamentals started to get unpicked.
So, Angelo, what do you think about? So, I think we could all agree that Chris Algieri has basically been rejuvenated or reborn or whatever term you want to use. He's
Can we
a different
use baptized?
fighter. He's been baptized.
Okay, cool.
By his time
Pastor
spent
David Jackson.
by Pastor David Jackson. So I think we could all agree, though, that he's a different fighter now than when he was under some kickboxing trainer, Tim Lane, that like had no idea what he was doing, right? I want your thoughts specifically, Angelo, on a Pacquiao rematch.
That's devilish.
I think Algieri knocks him out this time.
Awkward silence.
Be true to yourself. I want you to be true to
No,
yourself.
come on. That fight
True
doesn't
to your
go any
heritage.
differently. That fight doesn't go any differently.
Mm.
Maybe Algieri doesn't get knocked down so much. And I think a lot of that fight the knockdowns had to do with Algieri was just at the perfect range away from Pacquiao to get hit at the end of the punch where it had its most power.
Well, and he was constantly moving. So, like, he was always almost in the process of, like, going over because there was so much movement involved that you could kind of just push him a little bit, and he was already moving in that direction, and then bam, down he goes.
Here's the tricky thing about that
So,
fight.
but you don't think that fight goes any differently?
Well, here's what I was thinking, because yesterday I realized that, and funny enough, nobody said this, is there are very few fighters in boxing that throw a better overhand right than Algieri. Like, he lands it consistently, and it's like a strange punch because you know it's coming, and it looks telegraphed, and he consistently lands that punch, and he lands it flush. He did it to Pacquiao. He did it to Khan. He wobbled Khan in the first round with it, and he did it to Bonet over and over again. If he can get that going against Pacquiao, like, how does that fight go? Because he only landed it a couple of times in the first fight. He tried, but he only landed it a couple of times.
I think, do we agree that Pacquiao's the better boxer?
Yeah, we do. I mean, well,
So
I mean, I do. I don't know about Jason.
Do we agree that Algieri lacks the power to
It's the
stop Pacquiao?
Right, the overhand right, you can land it over and over, but if the power's not behind it, what's it doing?
Right. Well, here's the thing. He needs to do something about that power. Get your power up, Algieri, and that's a much different fight. I think he gets outboxed again. I don't know if there's 6 or 20 knockdowns, however many there were.
I think it was 26, but you're close.
Okay. I mean, I was wondering. But I think it's basically the same fight without the knockdowns and with more right hands landed by
Algieri.
Yep. Not Pacquiao. I mean, but what are we talking about this for? Because Algieri's not going to fight Pacquiao again. Algieri's going to go fight somebody, and Pacquiao's going to fight Bradley for a third time.
Who is that somebody, though?
Andre Berto.
Yeah, could be.
No, you know what?
Carrera.
Sean Porter?
No, it's Spence.
Ooh, that's a good name for Spence.
Like, if Spence can knock Algieri out, all right, Spence. Like, okay.
Algieri isn't
You've now
easy
just
to knock out,
leapfrogged everybody. Huh?
Yeah, that's the thing. Algieri isn't easy to knock out.
Oh, definitely not. I don't think that's easy at
Yeah.
all.
Right. That's a big task. You want to say Spence go outbox him? I'm cool with that. Like, if somebody's knocking out Algieri, now you've really made some waves.
I mean, I don't think so. I think
attention.
it's
Yeah.
weird. It's tough to
The
think.
kid's got a chin.
Yeah, no, I mean, Algieri is well
It's not just
conditioned.
the chin, it's his fitness. Yeah, it's that
He's
conditioning.
everything. Like, if Algieri had power, he'd be such a dangerous fighter to fight. I mean, he can outwork you, outpower you, and outbox you. I mean,
For
he
12
could be
rounds,
and he's
too.
way bigger than you.
Yeah.
I don't think that they put Spence in there. That's a dangerous fight for Spence. I know Spence is better than Algieri. Like, I just know that he's better. But at the same time, I'm not 100% that he wins that fight.
I know we'll talk about this later matchmaking, but maybe Paulie?
Paulie versus Algieri in another battle for Brooklyn?
Yep.
Or do they just say battle for New York?
No, they need Brooklyn because that's the only matchmaking ploy that Al Heyman knows how to do. And
Why
they've got
are you against it being Sean Porter, by the way?
Because I think Sean Porter needs to win so that he can fight Keith Thurman.
And you don't think he could beat Algieri?
No, I don't.
That's why I think that's interesting, because I think people are going to disagree on that.
I don't
And there's
care
going
if
to
they
be people
disagree.
on both sides.
I
No,
think
I mean,
that
it's going to be a compelling match because you're going to have a lot of fans that are not in agreement about how it's going to unfold.
it's one of those. Well,
rightfully
remember,
so,
I
though.
picked Algieri to beat Provodnikov, and I think that with Sean Porter, it's like I think Porter's the favorite, just as Provodnikov was. But Algieri has the style where if Porter wants to beat Porter, he'll get beat. Like he will have to show that he's a very dynamic fighter to beat Algieri.
Then you're kind of selling this fight at this point. So again, I don't see why
You've tricked me.
Absurd.
Yeah.
You've tricked me. That's not fair. I'm moving on. We're going to talk about the news this week, or from this past week. So the first news to talk about is that Manny Pacquiao, according to Bob Arum, was going to reveal his opponent on Friday. And Friday came, and I turned my Twitter notifications on to Top Rank, to Bob Arum, to Manny Pacquiao, to Boxing Scene, to Dan Rayfield, to Chris Mannix. Basically, anybody who's anybody that could report on who Manny Pacquiao's next fight would be. And guess what? I've turned all those notifications off now because nobody knows anything. And Bob Arum lied again.
No. They announced it. It's on the Shots app, but you removed it from your phone.
Oh, I did remove it. I had to make space.
They announced it via the Shots app. So
Doesn't Mayweather own Shots?
He does.
And he wouldn't let
you mean
Manny
he owns
get his
Pacquiao?
Shots.
No.
Is that what you're trying to say, that he owns Pacquiao?
No, I was saying that Mayweather would deny Pacquiao his shots.
He did. Over and over again. How many points or how many punches did Pacquiao land around? 3?
I was talking about the shoulder
round?
one.
It was
That was
like-
where the joke was aimed. The shoulder shots. But
That went right over my shoulder.
it sailed over you. Yeah.
Well, it actually hit your shoulder and went over your head.
I can't see. They're probably in disagreement with here because I imagine Team Pacquiao want a send-off fight that's going to be something fairly easy, and Arum's going to be looking for a torch-passing ass-whooping by someone on the way up. So he's probably trying to talk them into that.
So do you guys want to know who's going to fight? I'll tell you.
Hold on. You know what Pacquiao says to Arum? Pacquiao just looks at Arum and he
says,
just
"I thought
holds
I
up
won
a
the fight?"
picture. No, he holds up a picture of Andre Berto. He's like, look, that's what Mayweather got to do after we fought. Did you get it?
And so who Pacquiao's likely going to fight then, since you want to say that. And I agree with you.
It's got to be Kevin Bizier.
No, it's going to be Tim Bradley.
No, Bradley's
It will
already
be Bradley.
Said, Bradley
I don't
already
buy
said. Bradley has came out and said he does not want the fight. He wants Crawford to have the fight. Bradley's come out and said
Bradley's got a
that's
world
the
belt.
most
He
bogus thing I've ever
wouldn't want to
heard.
risk his world belt. And beyond that, he's done with the Pacquiao chapter of his life, and it's been horrible for him. He has no fond memories of those fights.
And why? Yeah, why
That's
is
the biggest payday for Bradley right now, and there will never be a bigger one for Bradley.
Guaranteed minimums. Bradley has one of the most ridiculous contracts in top rank boxing.
Shout out Monica Bradley.
Yeah.
Word. Everybody who wants to call her a
with that in
horrible
mind,
manager.
Is this a financially motivated fighter? No, I don't think it is. This is how badly he took the media backlash about his win against Pacquiao, and he was so invested in his image and his reputation.
Guys,
I just
who's the
don't
best
see him.
welterweight in the world right now?
This is a tough one to answer.
So but I do need one. So can you guys answer?
I'll give you Kell Brook then as your resident Brit.
You are a liar.
I can't give you Kell Brook. He just doesn't have the resume to support it. I mean, at the best, it's tough because we're in a transition period where these fighters need to fight each other to prove who's the best.
Am I talking to myself? Why are you guys being so political right now? Who's the best welterweight out there?
We're in a
Fine. It's
transition
Manny
period.
Pacquiao.
It's Manny Pacquiao, isn't it?
No, it's not.
All right.
No,
Yes.
it's Terrence Crawford.
Terrence Crawford is like weighing in at 139 pounds currently. So it's not Crawford. It will be, but not right now. Until Luke Campbell comes and knocks him out in 2 years.
Oh, please. He hasn't fought at 141 yet?
No, he hasn't. What do you think he's
Where
Canelo
were
or
you
something?
going with your point of asking who the best? You think Manny Pacquiao's the best welterweight?
If
and
you
so
guys
Bradley
are trying to
Fight's
make the
best
point
welterweight?
that he's not financially motivated, then he probably wants the challenge, right? So who's the most challenging welterweight out there that's an easy fight to make as well? It's Manny Pacquiao. It's not Jose Benavidez, is it?
You're talking about for Bradley.
Right.
Bradley doesn't want the fight.
Where did you guys see this?
He said that he would rather have Crawford get the opportunity.
Oh, Brad, that's some gamesmanship where Bradley's trying to say to Crawford, "I'd rather fight you, because I can beat you," versus Pacquiao. He's basically admitting that he can't beat Pacquiao.
No, he's saying, "I had my 2 paydays. Come get your payday, kid."
I don't buy that for a second.
Really?
Not for a second, no.
All right.
Not for a second. So, let's see. Canelo and Cotto. They, maybe Bradley trying to fight Canelo or something. They did 900,000 buys officially, but there is some word out there that that these numbers are lied, and that the real number was around 600 something.
Dave, these numbers lie.
What's substantiating that claim?
A lot of insiders, people who know stuff.
People who know stuff isn't sufficient evidence for that claim, is it?
No, it is.
But you know
Why
what
is
also isn't
Simon, I did not
evidence?
prepare and write down names here, so I don't know who to give credit to, but they're people who usually like get these numbers and everybody believes them. I think the writer from Yahoo is one of them.
Can
You imagine that in a court of law? You know, what's your evidence for this
This
claim?
is not the court of law. This is a
there's people who
podcast.
know. It's the court of public opinion, and I'm sure
But
it's
hold on.
fine to satisfy that.
Just to throw that back at you, Simon, is like, why is that credible? Why is the promoter who promoted the fight telling you the numbers credible?
Ah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
I totally
That's
agree.
a 10-8 round right there.
I think
Yeah,
probably
like-
the bigger point is, who the hell cares?
Well, it's fun to care in America, so screw you. So-
unless it's about gun
It's
control.
whose
then
numbers
who
are
cares?
this and that. Like,
Have
go,
this
get
conversation.
lost.
Ad nauseum.
Okay.
People do care.
So what do you guys make of those numbers? Whether they're first of all, which one do you believe? The 600 something or the 900?
The 900.
Okay.
I think
Jason.
I think they probably. I think it's a fight that easily could have sold 900,000. Like, but did it? I don't think so. I think it probably. I'd go closer to 899.
Oh my god. I'm like really
Fucking
gullible.
Price is right here.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think probably.
You guys have the prices right?
750. Yeah, no, I'd want to do $1 in that case. 750, I think, seems probably a little more accurate than just under $1 million. But I don't know. You can't. The bottom line is you can't believe either of them. They all want to lie to you. So.
Well, I believe the 900,000 figure. Okay,
Good.
I'm gullible. So
Yeah, that's just because. Right, you're going.
no, I mean I believe everything everybody says.
Exactly.
So
It's called critical thinking skills. But it's okay.
I'm not doing well in that. Maybe
We'll get you.
that's what you guys are here for. But I think it's a good number. I think it's basically what you should have expected.
It's a fantastic. Right, that's what I was saying. That's a fight that on paper is totally capable of selling 900,000.
But don't
without
you
a
think
doubt.
it's funny the people who thought this would do over $1 million? What were they thinking?
I think that's a little excessive, but
A little excessive.
but not much. Dude, over $1 million is only 100,000 more buys, man. Like, you know what I mean? So in the grand scheme of things, it's 10% more.
Well, my rule is to usually take 15% of the buys off. I think that's fair. I think they round it off quite a bit.
You mean they round up by about 15%?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
So
simultaneously, you also told us that
By
you
rounding up,
believe
you
that.
mean lie.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But he also simultaneously said he believes that it was 900,000.
No, I mean I believe
knows
that they
what
think
to-
that's what it was.
You believe that that's what they reported.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So to basically
Bottom line, those are decent numbers for anybody not named Mayweather and Pacquiao. In my opinion, very good numbers for an American pay-per-view.
hey, so in comparison, how much did the Golovkin Lemieux pay-per-view do?
Oh, that you can't even, because that was like what, 8.5 mil.
You mean 8.5 thousand?
So yeah, I see the point you're trying to make.
That
I think that was around 350,000 or something.
it actually was 150.
Was it 150?
Did you not know? Did you really not know?
I really didn't know.
Oh my god! Yeah, it was 150.
Neither of those fighters have captured their home country's national interest in that sense. Like,
well, it doesn't matter because it's these buy rates are only for America, our country.
Yeah, my point is that within America you have like a huge Mexican population that invest heavily in Canelo as a person, and you don't have a huge Kazakhstani population.
Yeah.
There's about 8 of them.
So
they all listen to podcasts too.
I'll be honest, they show up to his fights. I've been to a lot of Golovkin fights live.
Oh, I'm sure.
Kazakhs show up in force, but that doesn't mean that translates into buy rates by any stretch. I wasn't trying.
It's not a large enough number. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm not trying to refute what you're saying. I'm just saying it is surprising actually to see how many show up and how many flags you see.
We're trying to give credit to the Kazakhstani people. I think
that,
more than anything.
That show up exactly.
So what do you guys think of unification between Kell Brook and Tim Bradley? Who wins that fight?
That's a tough one. On paper, it's Bradley, but Brook's never been at that level of competition, and sometimes people grow on the night. So, who knows?
I think Brook is capable of growing on the night. I really do. But this rejuvenated Bradley is going to be a tough guy to beat. He really is.
I never buy into the rejuvenated thing. So.
Oh yeah, look at Miguel Cotto's career.
I'm like his biggest. Never mind. I think Bradley would be a small favorite, and I think Brook has more than a good shot at beating Bradley. In fact, if I had to bet some money, I would go Brook more than anything.
The thing that worries me about Brook is his resume boils down to Porter. Like, from an American standpoint. He had some domestic, wins that were very good on the way up. But on the, world level, his fame and glory rests at a Porter who was so one-dimensional that it was he was insanely one-dimensional.
But serious question,
you're speaking
guys.
to a sort of marketing issue more than a...
Serious question, though.
Well, no. That's talent. Is because had Porter been able to adjust, the fight would have been different. I'm not talking about marketing. I'm saying.
Well, now we're getting into, but then if Porter adjusted, would Brook have adjusted? That's crazy. But I want to ask you guys this, just based off of what we know of all the fighters, is who's got the better win? Period. And let's not count the Pacquiao fight, the first one, even though Bradley does have a win on his BoxRec page. But who's beaten the better fighter? Like, who's got the best win over a fighter? Is it Bradley or Brook at welterweight?
You have to do at welterweight?
Well, because then it gets crazy because it's like Lamont Peterson in 2008. It's like, come on, that was
it's got to be
years ago.
Bradley with Marquez, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I just wanted to check in.
Well, I disagree with that.
I have no opinion on that.
He's not an idiot.
I think that behind the win against Marquez, though, I think the Porter is the next most impressive win, and then it probably goes back to someone like Rios or Alexander on Bradley's resume. So I don't think that they're leagues apart in terms of quality of wins.
Wow, you just throwing Jesse Vargas under the bus, not giving him any credit.
Sadly, yeah.
I'm making the Diego Chavez face right now.
Don't worry, Jesse Vargas catch a free bus ride.
I don't get that one. What is that referring to?
Well, Simon threw him under the bus, so he'll get a free ride. He doesn't have to pay for a bus ticket.
I hate when you guys make these jokes. They just go over my head.
I don't even think that was a good joke. I think 90% of the people listening won't understand what I was referencing. Did you understand it, Simon?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, because I thought about it for a moment.
It took you a second.
Worked out where you were going with it, and then I knew.
So my joke is you have to connect 4 things without me telling you.
It was functionally sound.
Yeah. You got Abregu, you got Lamont Peterson, you got Nate Campbell.
Those were all at 140.
I don't care. Mm-hmm. It's still a representation of who he is as a fighter.
So should we bring up Provodnikov and Pacquiao twice too?
What he did to Provodnikov was short of amazing.
That was actually a miracle and not the
That's
good kind.
That's what I'm saying. Right. So point to me.
Let's see. Moving on.
Anyways.
So Tyson Fury is likely going to be stripped of the IBF title, and Fury doesn't really care because there's more money in not having the IBF title.
Could I just go ahead and who's the mandatory again? Glasgow?
No, hold on. I'm going somewhere with this. So,
I know.
Check this out, guys. So let's just look at who's the mandatory. So it's Vyacheslav Glasgow, who's with main events. But who's the number 2 guy? Because basically Fury's going to be stripped. So now who's Glasgow going to fight for this title? Is it going to be the number 2 guy? You know who number 2 is?
Tell me it's Wilder. I want Wilder to start collecting belts.
They don't have a number 2. It's nobody.
It just goes to 3?
And guess who's number 3?
Wilder.
You guys are going to love this. No, it's not Wilder. It's oh god, that would be hilarious if it's Ariola. No, it's funnier. It's Vladimir Klitschko.
Oh, love it. That'd be hilarious.
That's wonderful.
And then but that fight's not going to happen because Klitschko wants to get the lineal title back, and he's going to fight Fury again, plus more money in fighting Fury versus freaking Glasgow.
Why doesn't he pick it up on the way though? Just pencil it in for March for a quickie.
You should actually. That's a good. Has anybody told him he could do this? Someone should tell him. So then, number 4, Charles Martin.
Oh yeah, Charles Martin.
Guys, Charles Martin. You know Charles Martin, right?
You know Charles Martin. He fought out of the Newsboy.
He's out next week, I think. Isn't
No,
he?
but that's the point. Charles Martin fights next week against Dominic Breazeale.
Yeah.
Or Brazil, or however they want to say it.
Breazeale.
And supposing that Breazeale wins, he could like easily be number 2 now on the IBF's rankings, and therefore we could see Glasgow versus Breazeale, who looked horrible in his last fight out, for the IBF title. But here's the thing, guys, that's not going to happen. I just wanted to make a joke about that because Breazeale's an Al Heyman fighter, Glasgow's with main events, and Kathy Duva will do anything possible to not have to make any business with Al Heyman, so she can continue to justify Kovalev versus Stevenson not happening.
Boom! Drop the mic. End the show. It's over.
No, we still got to talk about Donaire, and I'm sure Simon's got some real good ones up his sleeve. So can AJ just beat Dillian White, and then he's ranked number 10 by the IBF? Could they just bounce him up to 2, and then we can get Glasgow versus AJ?
No.
Why?
The name of the game for AJ right now is little baby steps in quality of opposition, because if he is able to blow out everyone out the water, it leaves him with the position that Klitschko was in, where everyone's perceived as weak, the heavyweight division sucks because you've blown up everyone too soon. So in order to promote him for a long and healthy career, they're going to need to only baby steps. So I think we're going to see like Derek Chisora, just names rather than quality, because there's no reason for them to jump in at the deep end and then be, with a lack of competition or compelling matchups. Whereas if there's always someone to look forward to, then you can keep the momentum behind his career, keep people entertained. It's the entertainment business after all. And so I think that it would be irresponsible of them as a promoter to sort of leapfrog him beyond his time. It would net negative his career, and it's not a fan-friendly response. I'm not saying that that's what would be best for us, but it's what I see happening.
But even career-wise, you need to start getting him in with guys that he could go rounds with.
Why? If you can sell a pay-per-view against Dillian White that no one had ever heard of until like 6 months ago.
Now you're going to piss the British fans off, though, Simon.
Hold on 1 second. Are you going to actually... This pay-per-view hasn't happened yet, right?
No, it's next week.
Next weekend.
This week, yeah.
So we don't know that you can sell it. So you're being
happened. It's done.
But I think Jason's pointing to like the buy rate though, because you need people to buy it.
Like, you don't know that it's done. You don't know that he's a pay-per-view attraction at this point.
I don't think anyone will care. It's going to sell a few.
Yeah, but a few may not be enough to justify his next fight being on pay-per-view, just like Golovkin. Unless it's against the right opposition, is my point.
It will earn more than if they put it on just regular Sky, which was the other option. So, financially, they're better off putting it on pay-per-view.
So you think AJ's on pay-per-view for the remainder of his career?
Not necessarily. I don't think so, because they have to be able to sort of, at least tangibly justify it. But if they can keep,
but how do you tangibly justify it against Dillian White?
It's not about level of competition. You're getting lost here. This isn't a fan. This isn't a boxing fan product. This is a general sports market product. And the people that don't tune into anyone who's tuning into this from the UK is probably annoyed that this is a pay-per-view. They're probably annoyed because they know that it's not a quality matchup. The problem is they're not the intended market. The intended market are sort of pub fans, the people that don't watch boxing with any regularity but dip in and out.
And they're going to order this.
They're going to order this.
They're going to order this, and then they're going to get upset when it ends.
No, they're not. They're going to be amazed that he looks that good, and they'll have all the Sky team waxing lyrical about what he's going to do in the future and how bright his future looks. I promise you, this is going to be a hit with the general sports market, and it's going to be a trend for him from his career from now on out.
But the users on our boxing who are British are very unhappy with this.
Yeah, they're the exact people who would be unhappy with it, boxing fans.
The bottom line is the undercard is stacked.
It depends on what you consider stacked. But let's go to other previews before we talk about this card. So first of all, Nonito Donaire is going to fight on Friday against Cesar Juarez. So
where should I know Cesar Juarez from, Angela?
Really you shouldn't, because he should not be. I mean, he probably shouldn't be fighting Nonito Donaire. I mean, that's just me. That's me spitballing here. But unless you are like, you watch the Canelo. No. This was the Gonzalez Gary Russell Jr. Card. He was on that undercard. Wasn't even televised.
Oh, okay.
Cesar Serra.
All right.
So I mean, there's no reason for you to know him.
So if there's somebody on, and you're saying he shouldn't be in the same ring as Donaire, who's shot. That's saying something.
Yeah, well, I just want to say that you said that, not me.
Yep.
Yeah, Are you about to back him up, Simon?
No, I'm going to put his career in context. So, Cesar Juarez is the first win on the record of Edgar Lozano, who has a stunning record of 6 wins, 5 losses, and 2 draws.
He's a great fighter.
He was his first win.
Former world title holder. I'm kidding.
No,
so
definitely not.
Donaire's going to blow this guy out like he blows everybody else out. If you put a guy who can't defend himself well in front of Donaire is going to left hook him to death.
Yeah, especially if you give Donaire a size advantage. Are these guys in the same weight class as each other?
No, Juarez he's formerly a super flyweight.
And Donaire
as of
is
2 months ago.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. No, he's a 122-pound fighter.
Yeah, he's 22.
All I'm saying is it wouldn't surprise me.
Okay, and on the main event is Felix Verdejo versus Jose Nilson dos Santos, which is like another mismatch. Verdejo is going to blow him out of the water. The only thing that's interesting about this card is to see.
Is this a True TV? Where's this being broadcast?
Actually, it's on HGTV.
Oh, the Home and Gardening.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it's on True TV. The thing that's going to be interesting with this card is to see how Verdejo reacts after the hand surgery, which was like his second or something. This guy's got problems with his hands. And Dos Santos is huge. This is going to be an interesting fight where we have to see how Verdejo decides to get this guy out of there.
Or if he decides to make it a decision fight. Because of his hands.
Yeah, that's
because of his hands, I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay, so Simon is chomping at the bits, okay? He not only did he like message me about this, we talked about this before, like he really wants to talk about some fights that are very special to him. So Simon, go ahead. It's all yours.
I'm intrigued now. What are you talking about?
Your British, or not British, your Russian card.
Oh, the Moscow card coming up. That's going to be
You are now the host, Simon. Go ahead.
I'm really looking forward to that because it's like a walk down memory lane. You've got Alexander Ustinov fighting on the undercard, who we haven't seen in a televised fight for a while now.
In a relevant fight for a very long time.
And he's fighting Sam Peter, as in the Nigerian Nightmare Sam Peter, who's been vacant for a while now. He had that loss to Robert Helenius and then took like 3-4 years off, came back, fought to a tune-up fight a year ago, didn't do anything since. So he's out, so that's going to be a blast from the past in an interesting matchup. And then more names from history. You got Roy Jones Jr. fighting Enzo Maccarinelli.
Is this for a world title? Is this a world level fight?
No, but it's going to be fun and nostalgic. And
who do you favor here? Like, is Roy? Do you think Roy Jones lands like a 1-punch knockout? Does Macronelli is it Macronelli going to take him to decision?
It's a difficult one.
Roy's doing his best to work up some rankings to try to fight for a championship.
Enzo is not on the world scene, but he's not on the domestic scene either. He's somewhere in between.
He's at that George Groves level.
He is at that George Groves level. So I wouldn't feel confident because obviously with Roy Jones' age, I don't see that continuing forever. He doesn't strike me as a Hopkins, but I think that it becomes interesting.
What gave it away? The Lebedev fight?
I don't know. I wouldn't feel comfortable putting anything on this one.
Oh, please, come on. You know Roy Jones is going to knock out Macaronelli. 3 rounds tops.
You think?
It's got to be. Macaronelli's been knocked out 7 times. He's always knocked out when he fights really good guys, or just guys that are competent, it seems.
I can see an
argument. The
argument
right guy, because I did not bother to look this up at all. All right, so let's now get Simon talking about some relevant fights. So, Simon, Chris Eubank Jr. is back. Oh, I mean, Jason, you're involved in this too. So Chris Eubank Jr. is back. He's going to fight Spike O'Sullivan, Gary O'Sullivan. And guess what? The winner here is the mandatory for Danny Jacobs. So supposing Chris Eubank Jr. wins this.
That's not a big ask, is it?
It's a big ask.
You think?
I'm just kidding now. Eubank's gonna beat O'Sullivan. He's gonna knock him out. I'm trying to build some interest into this fight. If I just say, yeah, Eubank's gonna destroy him, people are like, oh, well then I'm not bothering wasting my time with this. Because Eubank is gonna knock him out. But Eubank versus Jacobs, I have Jacobs by knockout.
I don't think he'd be able to stop him, but I think that he'd just absolutely dominate him every round.
Why is it that it seems that every time Eubank Jr.'s name gets brought up with a world level fighter, that seems to be the theme of domination?
Eubank versus Danny Jacobs you're talking about now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got I think Jacobs in that fight.
Yeah, definitely. I just think Eubank's too hearty, too fit, too conditioned to be stopped.
But why do we always think that Eubank Jr. would get dominated by world level fighters?
Because at the minute he's still showing. Yeah, he's still showing those traits of someone who hasn't got a depthy amateur career, where he's excitable. He can admire his own work too much. He can get trapped in trying to look for headshots. There's just wrinkles in his work that I'm not comfortable with yet. That don't show that he's a seasoned pro yet. He's still someone that's very green in terms of how to approach the fight.
I can't claim to have watched a ton of his fights, but I have watched a few, and there's been nothing that I've seen that made me think twice as far as, oh man, this is somebody I really got to keep my eye on.
He's someone, he's got a lot of natural gifts, and there's some shots that he can do really well. He's got lots of good attributes, but I think it's the ring IQ that lets him down at the minute, and it's the lack of amateur experience, I think, that is on show there.
What about Lee? I know Lee Saunders is coming up, so you don't want to talk about that. But
Lee
what about
Selby?
No. Anyway,
that's next week.
Yeah, what do you think about Lee versus or the winner of Lee Saunders, whoever you want to pick as the winner,
Jacobs
against Jacobs?
Jacobs.
You got Jacobs in that fight?
Yeah, I think Andy Lee, as much as I could
He's
say
so
that he's one of my top 10 fighters that I like,
right?
But he's just sloppy sometimes. He has those signs where he shows signs where he's really good, and then there's points where I'm like, oh, Golovkin gets rid of you in 2 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
But that right hook is just so endearing, can put anybody away. And that's always something you got to throw in. Even if you fought Golovkin, it's well, can Golovkin avoid the right hook? But let's keep moving because we have 80 fights to go still. Gianluca Bronco is going to defend his European title, and I'm sure a certain R-Boxing user who likes to harass us, who's probably not listening, but if you are, will fight your favorite fighter, Paulie Malignaggi.
This is something that Malignaggi's been talking about. I don't know I don't know why I know this, but
because he talks about it a lot.
is it? I don't know. I'm like, I know this. I don't know if it's from, I don't really watch a lot of Paulie interviews, but I know that one of these things that he said is, before he ends his career, he really, really wants to win a European level belt. Like, he just wants one more, championship fight. And, my little joke was, once I saw the way the picture of this guy is, they should call it Civil War.
Go on.
No, Brett is talking about Italian heritage.
Oh yeah, they're both Italians.
It's a civil war. They both look like so quintessentially Italian too. So
yeah, his career though is kind of bullet pointed by losses where you step up. I think that he has always been fighting at the level he needs to. Well,
well,
no,
Jason, no.
Branco lost.
Oh,
that's one of Branco's losses is to Miguel Cotto.
I'm just saying.
Oh,
and,
I thought you were good. I wasn't even sure who you were talking about, Simon.
I was talking about Malignaggi.
But it goes for both.
Yeah.
Simon's talking about both fighters right now. Go on, Simon.
No, I think it's more emphasized with Branco. If you pick up his box rec, have a look. You'll see domestic Italian fights where he's getting a lot of decisions, and he's doing all right in Italy. But then pops up against Miguel Cotto, gets stopped. Pops up against Arturo Gatti.
He lost to Arturo Gatti.
Pops up against Matthew Hatton. Lost. And any time he's peaked above the sort of Italian domestic scene, takes a loss. And whilst Paulie hasn't had the most notable wins, I think he's been in a lot tougher contests and has beaten. He has at least had wins on the world scene.
Juan Diaz.
Gatti fight, that could have been another Civil War
if
fight.
sparing.
Who else? Vyacheslav Senchenko.
Zabjuda.
Zabjuda. That was such a horrible fight.
It
was a horrible fight, but he got the nod. So my point is that whilst it's fine to say that they've both struggled in their top tier fights, Paulie is a real world scene fighter, even though he's not at the top of the world scene. He's on it and isn't a stranger to it,
and doesn't have the wins.
But Branco is a complete amateur to the world scene, and every time he's brushed with it, it's gone badly.
I think it's fairly easy to say, even in Paulie's kind of diminished state, he should win this fight.
Basically,
I wouldn't be surprised if he lost, though, either. That's the flip side of this. Like, I wouldn't be like, oh my.
Okay, what would be more shocking?
Anyone that says, yeah, but Paulie's getting on a bit, look up Branco's age, and you'd be like, oh.
Yeah. He's like 64.
He's 45.
Paulie relies a lot on his reflexes and in his ability to move and things like that, which are, things that go. So I would obviously favor Paulie, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised if either of them lose.
Okay, so what would you be more surprised by? Paulie knockout or Paulie loss?
Like knockout, or by like a stoppage on cuts, that count?
Any sort of stoppage.
Any stoppage, yeah.
Any kind
that
of
would
stoppage?
surprise me more.
Than Paulie losing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There
Fair
you go.
enough, guys.
Go, folks.
All right, Luke Campbell's back, and Luke Campbell's not fighting anybody who you should be proud of. But he's still a prospect, these are the kind of acceptable fights.
I hope that guy's parents don't listen.
Campbell knows that he's gotten more than enough filleting on this podcast. And but we're fans of Campbell. We like to see him. We think he's got a bright future. Simon actually has him as a number one prospect in the sport.
And I have
on his
a
list.
tattoo of him. Yep.
Say that again.
And I have a tattoo of him.
Yeah, when he was in the bouncing costume, the dancing with ice on ice, when he was in that, yeah, that's what you have tattooed on you?
Yep.
In the sparkly tight suit?
Yeah.
I have my Carl Froch one on my back. And then the main event, Simon's been I can tell he's like anxious to talk about this. Anthony Joshua versus Dillian White. So why is this fight relevant?
Anthony Joshua again?
Somebody left feedback for us that says we talk about Anthony Joshua too much. So if you wouldn't mind, Simon,
they actually said briefly. Anton Joshua, so I'm assuming that that's a different fighter. that we obviously talk about too much.
But Simon, why is this fight relevant? Like, could you go over the history of these two?
Could you help? Yeah, help me out
White
because I don't know.
Beats AJ as an amateur and has knocked him down. So AJ gets knocked down and then loses a decision to Dillian White as an amateur, and that doesn't mean a thing. He's an interesting enough fighter in his own right, but this isn't going to go well for him.
Bars, baby, bars.
So you don't think White? What round?
The only bit is if White has been able to get into his head, or that mental thing of being knocked down by somebody and losing to somebody, it is somehow going to unnerve AJ. But if AJ comes and is the fighter we've seen him be every time we've seen him in his professional career, then easily within the first three. I don't see it going any further than three, just like the rest. The only thing is he's a big hitter, White, and if he can mentally unbalance AJ and get him to commit to something silly that he shouldn't, where he should rather be, sticking to his boxing, then he's going to struggle to find anything. It is going to be about if he can force a mistake out of AJ.
How old is AJ, Simon?
He's like 26, 27.
Yeah, he's really young.
As far as getting inside of his head and things like that, as you suggested, I think AJ, even for his relatively young age, has shown quite a bit of maturity in his fights. So I don't necessarily think that will be a problem. If that's what people are betting on, I think they're in tough shape.
I don't think his fights even go long enough for you to make any determination about. Like, nobody sticks around long enough to see if they've affected AJ mentally. I think you're right on the money where if you say White, if AJ comes out and gives him respect that he's not shown anybody thus far. I mean, he showed Kevin Johnson a little bit of respect, but very quickly realized wait, this guy's not even fighting back. But White will. I have a feeling that White's going to come out guns blazing.
Yeah,
and he's going to get hurt. I don't foresee that Joshua doesn't just put him away really quickly. I think first round. What do you guys think?
I always think 2. I think 2 is a safe bet with AJ, except when it's not.
So 50% of the time, this has not been a good bet.
50% of the time it works every time. No, I just got stung by Gary Cornish, but I was on a good streak.
I told you first round on the Cornish one.
I know. Well, we'd picked round 1 for Sprott, round 3 for Gavin, 2 for Love, 2 for Johnson. So we'd been bang on every time, and stupidly put money on 2 for Gary Cornish.
Did you guys see that thread that somebody put up like a few days ago? Maybe it said, "What do you guys think of Gary Cornish? I think he has a future." I don't know if I think Jason, you posted, you said like I hate to break it to you, but this has happened, and it was a video of the AJ fight.
No,
I don't know if it was you, Jason.
That wasn't me. No, that wasn't me.
I thought that was hilarious. Okay, so let's go to America. Jose Benavidez is back in action. He has a world title, and yet he's not defending it. He'll be fighting on Unimas. And the real main event, although it's probably not the main event, but the real attraction of this card is that Oscar Valdez is back in action. I don't know who either guy is fighting, but I'm sure it's going to be an uncompetitive fight because, for one, Valdez is extremely talented, and then for two, they wouldn't give Benavidez a tough opponent. So the other card is headlined by Omar Figueroa versus Antonio DeMarco, but let's just touch on the Breazeale versus Charles Martin fight. Do we know which way we want to go on this one? It's Charles Martin.
It's a difficult one. I wouldn't be surprised if it were.
I didn't like anything that I saw with Breazeale in his last fight.
Yeah, I mean, with Charles Martin, he'd taken a very long time to deal with Rafael Zumbano Love. And that I don't know, that worried me.
I think Breazeale is like, he's the one who's had me think this, because in his last fight, he looked one-dimensional. He gassed. He looked like he just
totally, yeah.
He doesn't have imagination with his offense, and I think Martin is a bit smarter, more advanced as a fighter. and he's ranked number 2 by the IBF. There must be some reason for that. So that's that fight. Now, the main event is Omar Figueroa versus Antonio DeMarco. Antonio DeMarco has not looked good at all in his last, 5 fights or so. He's at one point he retired as well, and then he came back. I guess the money was too good, and now he's got himself fighting Omar Figueroa, who's an action fighter. His last 2 fights, DeMarco's lost to Jesse Vargas and Rancis Barthelemy. Do you guys remember when people thought that DeMarco would beat Broner? There was a lot of people. If we pull up the threads, we can find it. That people thought that.
Yeah, do you remember when Broner came in overweight and didn't?
You know that he didn't come in overweight for this fight, right? They both weighed the same thing.
For DeMarco?
Yep.
Are you sure?
You might be talking about Eloy Perez or someone like that. But okay. Broner weighed in. He made weight for this fight and then proceeded to destroy DeMarco in a way we had never seen DeMarco beat up. Maybe, he wasn't even beat that bad in the Valero fight. He was far more competitive with Valero than he was with Broner. But I think Figueroa is the kind of fighter where he doesn't hit hard. His activity is going to make this really interesting. Like, DeMarco actually has a chance here. Not a good one, but he has a chance. And I get the sense that you guys are, not thrilled with this fight.
I don't have an emotional investment in it.
Because they're not British?
I follow loads of fighters that aren't British. It's, I don't know. I struggle to connect with this one in terms of what it means and what their paths, are going to, where they're heading, basically.
I get the sense, I know what you mean by that, because I get the sense with Figueroa that it's what division is he in?
Yeah.
He's just, drifting in limbo. I mean, really, he's been at 140 for a while now. And when I say a while, I mean his past fight, and that's where this fight's going to be at as well. But he just, nobody knows what to think of Figueroa because it's what division is he supposed to be in? And I just want to remember that in his last fight, he probably, he won on the cards against Ricky Burns, but that was a close fight, and I would have liked to have seen a rematch with those 2 guys.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have liked to have seen a rematch?
I don't know about it being close.
I thought Burns was beating him in some rounds.
It was the Eloy Perez fight.
Jason, you tried to test my trivia knowledge.
Sorry about that. Sorry, Broner.
That's the one. Oh no, that might have been Escobedo actually, where Escobedo tested positive for coke after the fight.
Yayo.
Yeah. So, I
just have no. I've been quiet. Figueroa is not. I don't care for his style.
I know.
Much.
You know what? I was going to bring that up. I know how to make. You know how to make Jason
you know how to get
as a fighter. You have to be an activity fighter. Jason hates activity fighters.
So my son has scarlet fever, otherwise known as strep throat.
Scarlet fever is strep throat?
Same thing. Yeah, it's just.
Are you serious?
Yeah, when strep throat presents with a rash, it's called scarlet fever.
I thought scarlet fever was one of those things that we had eradicated with
Doesn't it sound so much?
Yeah.
Doesn't it? It sounds like 1801 England. It sounds like this really old, crazy.
All right, guys. Before we wrap up, I have a couple of questions for you guys, or rather, this is a question. It's time for you guys to give me answers, and I'll tell you the answer. So, what do you think the odds are on a Golovkin versus Froch fight?
Oh,
Golovkin versus Froch?
Yeah.
Is there
what,
some
do you mean
American money line? So don't give me
the
that.
odds of it happening, or if it were to happen?
If it were to happen, who would be the favorite? Who?
Who would be the favorite?
I think Golovkin, but not by as much as you'd reckon.
So, Froch would be plus what?
150.
Simon or Jason?
I was gonna say 200.
It's 275.
Yeah.
This is by some British sites. So here's how we're making money, guys, because I got a bunch of these. Krolla versus Mitchell. It's likely that fight happens, don't you think, Simon?
I don't see why not. I get the feeling that they're all trying to just get belts and not fight each other for the minute so that they can be more meaningful down the stretch. But yeah, I think in good time that'll happen.
Okay, so check this out. Krolla right now is a plus 220 underdog against Kevin Mitchell, who's lost 4 times trying to challenge for a world title. I think we got to bet everything on Krolla if this fight happens. Because Krolla knocks him out. or at least wins a gutty decision, British style.
Yeah, I'm inclined to believe that.
What about Golovkin versus Canelo?
Don't tell me
Please tell me
Canelo's the favorite.
Don't tell me. Yeah.
No, obviously Canelo's not the favorite, but Canelo would be plus what?
Oh, right now, coming
50?
off that photo win.
50?
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna say plus 175.
So here's where we got to take a risk, guys. It's plus 450 for Canelo. That's way too
Whoa.
wide.
I think that'll settle down if that ever got signed.
But if it got signed, we'd have to jump on that immediately so we can make money.
No, not at all, because that is not too wide.
No, it is.
Golovkin beats the piss out of him and knocks him out.
No, because you're forgetting that this fight doesn't get signed unless it's a catch weight. And we got to bet on that adding a lot in Canelo's favor. What about Fury Joshua?
I don't add it a lot.
Fury will be what, plus 150?
Jason?
Fury Joshua. 250.
It's Fury plus 225. Again, we have to bet on that.
I was good on that.
Yeah, you got that. You did pretty good on that one.
Oh.
We got to bet on that. Because if Fury can survive the first 3 rounds, all bets are off in that fight. And we got to gamble on that. All right, Hay versus Joshua. David Hay. Remember him?
Is Hay the favorite?
I'm not saying nothing.
That would be absolutely hilarious and adorable.
Hay's over here setting the lines. No, Hay's the underdog. So what is he at?
Yeah. Hay.
It doesn't matter. There's no way I'd never bet on Hay in that
Well,
matchup.
this is the point. It's plus 300 for Hay. So that
Dude,
must mean...
Dude, I nailed that. Plus 300.
Well, we got to bet on
was I-
Joshua because that's a good payout. Wilder versus Povetkin. This was hilarious.
I should.
Wilder
versus
underdog
Povetkin?
plus
No.
225.
So
yeah.
Wilder is plus 225?
No. Hold on. Povetkin underdog 120.
No.
You guys are
Yep.
both wrong. So Wilder is a favorite.
That's
Yeah,
what I
that's
said.
what I said.
Yep.
Povetkin
That's what I
plus
said.
235.
I said Povetkin plus 125.
DeGale versus Jack. This is another good one.
Jack the favorite?
No.
He shouldn't be, yeah.
But Jack is plus 300.
Oh,
Again,
that's
we got to gamble on
That's
that.
wide. Yeah.
It's really wide, especially for a guy like Jack who just makes everything difficult for everybody. We could get so much money if we just bet these fights. If they could just get signed, I think we'd be rich in 2016.
Yeah.
And we've
Plans
had
there.
real good luck this year on the podcast of knowing when to bet on the underdogs. And
Do you guys know I have a countdown timer going till Frampton Quigg? 81 days,
how do you do that?
166 hours, 117,981 minutes, 7,078,870 seconds.
Yeah, so this is the part of the podcast where we realize it's time to go.
81 days, 22 hours, 21 minutes, 2 seconds.
Okay, before we go, I want to thank all the listeners who filled out the survey that one of the users, not the users, maybe a user, but one of the listeners created for us, and we've gotten some really cool feedback. And if you haven't gotten a chance to fill it out, please do. Jason will post a link when we post the podcast up whenever he gets around to it. So thanks for listening, and we'll be back in a day or two with the preview podcast, which will have Dean and Adam both on it. Maybe Adam. I don't know. I don't know. I got to work it out with him, but Dean for sure.